Welcome. I'm Phil Cornish. I am your host for Cornish Talks Common Sense. We've had some new programming that we're back with. Some of it's going to touch on some of the old topics we've talked about, but updating it with current events. So we've just been through an example of that, talking about how that, for example, Christianity, our roots, our Judeo-Christian foundation of civilization is coming under attack like never before, tearing down strongholds of Christian values and historical foundations of our society, our Western civilization. And this is a danger signal, something that you need to pay attention to. I talked to you last time about why that's happening. How can we understand why this is happening? We're going to come back and talk about that from a little different perspective, and we'll be back in just 1 minute to get started on that. We've been talking about the attack of Christianity in Western civilization, and we know that historically Christians have faced attack more than any other group or ethnicity or other entity. Christianity has been under attack historically more than any other. And now in the Western civilization, we're seeing it unfold at the greatest level it ever has to this point in time. Why is it happening? The Bible tells us that Christianity will come under attack, and there will be a time where Christians will face persecution even, and we in our society may have to realize that we are facing that threat now. Well, what are some of the forces that are behind that? I want to turn the page a little bit and talk about another force that is behind it. And one of those forces that is powerfully working against Judeo-Christian civilization is the idea of cancel culture. Now, you've heard that word used just in recent years. And of course, the left-wing media sort of poo-poos it and says, oh, what's cancel culture? It doesn't really exist. And what does it mean? And that was the same argument a few years ago was made when the idea of political correctness was used. And the same people said, oh, what's political correctness? It doesn't exist. The facts tell us that political correctness and cancel culture are new phenomenon, each of them new phenomenon that are happening in our society today that are dismembering and tearing apart the fabric of our society. So let's talk a little bit about that. So cancel culture is ideological terrorism. That's another little aphorism that I have made up. I don't believe I've ever heard the term used before, so I think I can say it starts here. Cancel culture and wokeism is ideological terrorism that is being practiced on our society. These agents of secularization are working to dismember Christianity. Now, you don't hear them say that out loud, but you know from some of the items I've just referenced to you on the attacks against Christianity that are happening, that is the real effect of what is happening. And sometimes it comes under language like multiculturalism and pluralism. And really the idea is it waters down our Judeo-Christian heritage. And then now, even in a stronger language, cancel culture and wokeism come to bury Christianity. And we should be concerned because this is new territory that our civilization has never seen, that will tear apart our society. How do they do what they do? They do it by language manipulation. And I want to talk to you now about this tactic of how cancel culture and wokeism works. It works by manipulating language. They make up words and change the meaning of words in ways that completely infects and destroys language as we have known it heretofore. I want to talk to you about some specific examples of how that has come into play, because this movement is threatening to break down the institutions of our society, the family, the church. And I want to quote to you from a statement made by former Alberta Premier Jason Kenney just in the last weeks, where he talked about the left-wing woke agenda is seeking to cancel our history, delegitimize our institutions and customs, and divide society along identity lines. So there's a politician who's been involved in politics in Canada for a number of years, both federally and provincially, who is telling the truth about what is unfolding with the woke agenda and cancel culture. So I want to talk to you a little bit about how they're doing it through language manipulation. So here are a few examples. Just in the recent years, we've heard about this word wokeism, which really emanated from black culture, but gives the idea that certain people believe they've seen the light, that they've become awakened to historical wrongs and to unfairnesses that exist in our society, and therefore attack the establishment. And the question is it legitimate? Is it legitimate? And I'm going to suggest to you that by and large it is not. But let's focus on how they do it. So just in recent years, you've heard about wokeism, but a little before that time, you heard how historians have transitioned to using the defining of our whole history in a new way. And instead of using the term BC, before Christ, and AD, after death, after the death of Christ, now historians are using a new label, calling it before the Common Era and the Common Era instead of BC and AD. This is new just in the last decades, where historians are seeking to throw out the whole calendar chronology that historically has always been founded on a Judeo-Christian basis before Christ and then after the death of Christ, is being discarded in favor of new words, new language used, in this case particularly by historians. And then now we're hearing this new idea, I talked to you about it in a previous program, about diversity, inclusiveness, and equity. Now, originally it used to be diversity, inclusion, and equality, but then someone thought we better change equity to equality to equity. And I challenged them, and I challenge anybody to actually define what those words mean, because in language they are largely meaningless. Define equality. Define what it means. Does it mean equality of opportunity, or does it mean equality of result? And in many instances it seems to be more the latter, and meaning that there should be directed efforts against certain groups and uplifting other groups in ways that in fact are counter equity and counter common sense. And so this whole idea of diversity, inclusion, and equity is upending our world today. And these have become the new secular values replacing Christian values. Okay, so you need to understand that what diversity, equity, and inclusion are secular values displacing Christianity. In the same way climate change is. It is a new secular religion, climate change. Talked a little bit about that in the past program as well, and maybe we'll come back to it again. But I want to carry on with some other ways that language is manipulated. So people now from the left and from the woke cancel culture perspective, use the language Christian nationalism, that is now a bad thing, that the idea of Christian nationalism is a bad agenda, that it is something that should be attacked. When again, historically, that is in fact what our civilization has supported. So they throw out this label in a pejorative sense, in a negative manner that seeks to cast aspersions against Christianity by referring to this idea of Christian nationalism. I have an article about that here with me today. I don't know if I'll take the time to find it, but it's something that is happening today, and we hear, of course, the language white supremacy. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that one, but that is another one of the mottos, the aphorisms used by the left-wing woke cancel culture agenda, is to talk about white supremacy. What is white supremacy? That is another point that really is very difficult definitionally, and why this postmodern language manipulation, where you really can't define things in any objective truth sense, but instead it's subjective. It means something different to every person, and because it's such an emotional issue, feelings dominate. Right? Remember the points I've just referenced. The elevation of feelings, they dominate, so that people now are canceling people out. They're canceling speakers at universities. They're attacking people like Jordan Peterson, Ann Coulter, people, Charles Murray in the past. People who have conservative views are being disallowed to speak, censored. These are ideas that in our society heretofore would never have been countenanced, because they speak against the very essence and values of democracy and freedom of speech. But they are now operating as a new wave, a juggernaut in our society that by language manipulation is seeking to control agendas and the news media. And again, as we've seen in the Twitter issue that we've just been alerted to, and probably Facebook and Instagram and others, those of conservative values are being shut down and shut out, and instead left-wing radical values are being allowed to be promoted. Let's look at a few more. In the business world, the label ESG is now a new big thing. The idea there about environment and social and governmental issues, that these should now be the core values. And when you invest in corporations, if they're not following woke agendas of protecting the climate and things such as that, then you should disinvest and disavow companies that don't follow that. And this is taking over the business world, this idea of ESG, these new secular values, this language manipulation that is occurring. And then I want to talk to you about a few more that is happening in another big area that I've touched on already, and that is the area of gender and sex, transgender, same-sex issues. And so we hear these invented words now of gender assigned at birth, as if there's something different than just two sexes, male and female, and suggesting that it's ambiguous or fluid at birth, and that you could be either male or female, or dear knows, one of the many other categories, two-spirit, and on with this escalating alphabetical acronym of LGBT, and we could go on and include many other labels. This kind of effort to control language and create new values that gender is assigned and you're not born with it is counterintuitive and illogical. And I could take much time with some materials I have with me today to talk about why it's ill-founded. I'm not going to in this program take the time to go all through that. I want to focus just on the fact of these labels that are happening, gender assigned at birth. And then this idea now, if you're heterosexual, what has been deemed a norm throughout history, now they invent a new label for us called cisgender. This made-up word for heterosexuals now to distinguish from same-sex and many other labels that I've just referenced to you. And excuse me, even the idea of mother is now being shuttled aside. And so now we have the word birthing person, as if males could give birth. Ideas that are so completely ill-conceived and so completely created, invented to promote ideological values is controlling our society, and it is ideological terrorism. And let me throw out one more to you. What we have historically always considered to be one of the most heinous of sexual practice, the idea of people who engage in pedophilia. Now there's a movement to just simply describe them as minor attracted people. A minor attracted person is what we call the new person who would seek to engage in horrific attacks sexually against young children because it's being relabeled. This whole notion of persons who would sexually molest children are now simply the more innocuous minor attracted persons. This is the kind of language manipulation that is happening every day in our society. It is dangerous, it is unfathomable, and it is what I have called ideological terrorism, because that is what it is. They don't seek simply to be even affirmed. They seek to shut down all those who oppose their views, counter to their own views of diversity of views and opinion and freedom of expression. Their agenda is malignant. It seeks to shut down freedom of speech. It seeks to shut down historical values of our Judeo-Christian society. We should be greatly concerned by it. I hope this provokes you to look into this area, because it is one of the most concerning areas that we hear about every day in our society. I hope you're paying attention. Stop this madness. Thank you for listening.